Today on the broadcast, we're going to talk about watches. More specifically, this specific watch, the Casio F-91W, and then further specifically to that, compared to this Garmin Forerunner 735 XT. Now, I bought the Casio F-91W weeks ago with the thought of making this video, and I've worn it a couple of times, and like oddly, it has been noticed numerous times in the comments. Does anyone want to mention the fact that this guy's wearing a Casio F-91W? Hey, I've got that same F-91W watch. Whoa, Casio F-91W alert! This, like, under $12 digital watch has garnered more attention without me prompting it than this ever has, even when I talk about it. I just think that's a funny fact to bring up. In any case, the goal for today is to compare these two as sport watches. Obviously, the first thing we need to mention about these two in a comparison, the elephant in the room, the price difference. Currently listed on Amazon, a Casio F-91W is $11.87, and the Forerunner 735 XT, being a slightly older model, listed on Amazon right now is $234.90. Yeah. And actually, at literal face value, the Casio and the Garmin are pretty comparable. Each show the hour, minutes, and seconds of the day, along with the day of the week and the date of the month. Bizarrely, the smaller, less expensive Casio has a one-up over the Garmin by displaying the morning or evening, AM or PM, on the side here of the left of the display, where the Garmin doesn't offer that at all. That's hilarious. Now, depending on whether or not you prefer a 12-hour clock or a 24-hour clock, each one has the ability to do that. The Casio is just a simple touch of a button. The Garmin, you have to actually go through the settings. Run indoor, yeah, right. Okay, format, 24-hour. There. And then you go all the way back, and you've got yourself a 24-hour clock, just like that. But I want a 12-hour clock. So, as watches, I don't think it really comes as too much of a surprise. Fairly comparable between the two. The Casio having the slightest edge. I think where it truly falls short is the backlight. The backlight on the Garmin is a much superior piece of technology than the Casio F-91W, which has not been, you probably can't even. It's actually, as another YouTuber that I watched a video of, his F-91W review said, kind of one of its like old school charms. The fact that it's still to this day in 2020, still not to a point that can backlight the entire watch face is just like, they could fix it, but why try? So form factor, obviously the Garmin is a significantly physically larger watch than the F-91W is, which I do like the look of better, but it can sometimes become a bit of a pain when you're working on certain things or you're trying to like reach into something. This thing gets knocked off of stuff pretty constantly. This is far less intrusive, regularly does not get in the way of anything. Okay, the next portion of this video will actually be going out and putting these two to the test in the real world. Okay. So obviously, big difference between Casio and the Garmin watch is the Garmin has like a GPS in it, so you're sort of stuck sitting here waiting for GPS signal, where the Casio is literally just a timer. You can start it anywhere. You don't have to worry about literally anything. So that's a plus. Problem is, when you start running with this, you've got a little bit of work to do up front or at the end to tell you how far you've gone, where this, well, it's literally doing it for you the entire time. One thing that I hate about the Garmin is that it's mean. I don't know if it has like memory of past runs, but it regularly will give me a notification while running that if my pace goes a little bit slower than maybe what it's used to, it vibrates and sends a message saying slow. The Casio doesn't do that. It's a much kinder timepiece.
Very shaky bike rider. He's all like, be my cameraman on a bike. You'll be fine. Probably gonna die.
Here's this other thing that the Garmin does, and it's like its default settings that of course this Casio is not going to do. And it's the fact that if you get into a situation like this, or maybe your dog needs to use the bathroom or just is eating leaves, that the Garmin will stop and pause for you and say, well, you haven't been running for this time, so it doesn't count towards the time, which is cheating. If you're out for 4 hours to finish a run, but you were only moving for 2, it still took 4 hours. The Casio does not cheat. The Casio says, you're still out, you haven't hit stop. The time keeps going. Cheating's not cool. Hey, 2.5 kilometers now. Very traditional stopping point for Angela and I, but we're quite familiar with this trail. Of course, using a Garmin with a GPS, you're afforded the luxury of knowing how far you've gone as you're doing it. On here, it's not a problem with the Casio because we know where we like to turn around. If you're gonna be somewhere new, somewhere unfamiliar, you're not gonna know. You're not gonna know unless you are really good with like maps or, I don't know, old school stuff that I don't have to worry about. The Garmin, you can stop. The Casio, you can stop as well, manually. But you want to be careful with this because it's got no memory. If you lose this screen and you don't write it down, it's gone. So you almost need to like bring paper with you to write it down and try and remember like how many kilometers you did. This connects right to your phone, so save, it's saved. Everything. That's a nice feature. I want to make sure we don't forget to write this down. 40 minutes and 58 seconds. To really know, if you didn't have this, how many kilometers you did, I suppose you'd need to either have looked at the trail markers, which I didn't do today, or look at like a map or go on Google Maps or something and try and remember how far you went and started to actually say how long you went for the time you did. We know it's 5.5. Oh, there is memory. Oh, cool. Oh, it's gone now. Okay, back in the shed, equipped with some run data from 2 different pieces of technology. 40 minutes and 58 seconds for, we're just gonna say that it was 5.5 kilometers because that's what the Garmin said. When it comes to the data that the Garmin spits out, it's very, very kind. It'll spit out your average pace for the total moving time, not the total elapsed time. Of course, making your timed 40-minute and 58-second run look significantly better than it actually was. The quiet Casio that didn't bother you the entire run, it'll spit out a true pace of 7-minute 27-second per kilometer pace. Quite a bit slower than the generous moving time average of the Garmin. Obviously, the biggest and best benefit of a Garmin watch is it does sync to your phone, and it will automatically, if you want it to, upload to whatever activity tracker that you use. Garmin Connect, Strava, all that stuff. With the Casio, you're stuck with a much more old school style way of keeping track of your runs, and that is either to keep a training book or like loose pieces of paper, probably regularly forgetting to write things down, and possibly longing for a quicker, easier, more, organized way of keeping your runs in place. A couple of last things to say, of course. Battery-wise, this is a lithium ion. It recharges. It needs to be charged, in my experience, about every 5 to 10 days, depending on how many activities you've done. This uses a typical watch battery. I've never had to recharge it or change anything yet. Probably when it dies, I will buy a new watch instead of getting it replaced. So, which one should you get if you want to spend the money on a Garmin watch that's kind of big and you have to recharge all the time, and it can give you all sort of, cool statistics and data and all that good stuff? Then you can look at the 735 or its newer version. If you don't care about any of that stuff and you want to spend less than $12 on a watch and literally just use its timer as your timekeeper, then the F-91W may or may not be the watch for you. This is also just kind of a unfair, ridiculous comparison to make, and if you ask me, I think you should get the F-91W. It's a great watch.